Good evening. It is 5:15 this Monday, March 14th, and the Carroll City Council is now in session. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All are present. On tonight's agenda, item number 3 is the consent agenda, and it is for the following: approval of minutes of the February 28th meeting. Following that, there's approval of bills and claims. Following that, there are 3 liquor permits, licenses, a renewal of a Class C beer permit with Sunday sales for Sparky's One Stop, renewal of a Class C beer permit, Carroll Can Redemption, and a new Class E liquor license with Sunday sales, the Chemist Carroll Country Store number 1. Does anybody have any questions about the consent agenda? If not, I would request a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion to approve. Motion and seconded to approve tonight's consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call please, Laura.
Bauer,
Yes.
Base,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Schreck,
Yes.
Bordnero.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Perfect, thank you. Item number 4 is oral requests and communications from the audience on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Are there any comments? Nothing online? Okay, moving forward, we'll go to item number 5, ordinances. There are no ordinances to review tonight. We will move quickly to item number 6, which is resolutions. And the first one is the Carroll Rec Center Building Improvement Project 2021 Contract Amendment number 1 and 2 with RDG Planning and Design. I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
I'll let Chad.
Or Chad? Perfect.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The February 28th council meeting, City Council rejected all bids and authorized RDG to begin work for an additional $76,000 in construction plan design fee for the base bid and add alternate project at the rec center. Base bid would include locker room renovation, corridor improvements, wet classroom addition, and HVAC replacement, including in the existing gym. The add alternate would include added walking, jogging track on the second level. Now, in your packets for the design that was currently put in your packets, that still does show the sloped walking track. That is being addressed, being brought up, so it will be completely level all across the board. New lighting in existing gym, elevator and stairwell, using existing mechanical space for new track necessities, relocation of electrical gear, and adding new pool unit outside on roof, since the current unit there is 3 to 5 years away from being replaced. I guess to continue with this, we would also like to maybe have a discussion about what we want to do with making the mezzanine fully ADA approved. ADA accessible. Currently, the mezzanine would not be ADA accessible. We would be looking at a couple of different areas of stairs coming down to the mezzanine from the walking track. We would like to get that to ADA compliance. It just helps with the flow for adding existing equipment upstairs and down. Currently, we have to have everything that's upstairs on the mezzanine mirrored downstairs. Or I said that backwards, I think. But so we would like some further discussion on the possibility of adding a ramp from the area of the walking track down to the mezzanine to make it fully ADA compliant. Further on this, the architectural engineer fees are listed in the packets below. If you'd like, I could walk through those. Original contract, is the $456,405, and that included construction phase fees and design and bid phase fees. Amendment number 1, which we'll get to in a second, would include the replacing of air handling units, sound system, and then adding fire protection system to the building. And then this amendment number 2, which is the additional RDG design fees for base bid, additional engineering fees for the add alternate, with the reduction in the overall construction phase fee of $18,000, would bring the total contract total after amendment number 2 to $544,305. Below is listed for the timeline moving forward. We expect to have everything ready and out for bid by May 12th of this year. Bids tentatively will be due and open June 16th, and then council will be considering the new bids possibly at the June 27th meeting. Further information on amendment number 1. During the review of amendment number 2 with RDG, it was discovered that amendment number 1 to the AIA contract was never approved by the city. This work included adding the replacement of air handling units, speakers, and new gym and locker rooms, and the addition of the fire suppression to the building improvement as required by state fire code. These items were added to the project, and the work has been completed by RDG and has been paid for by the city. RDG is due this amount, and the amendment should be approved by the city. So on top of that, our recommendation for the mayor and city council is consideration and approval of the attached resolutions approving both amendment of contract number 1 to AIA document B101 with RDG planning and design in the amount of $29,900, and amendment of contract number 2 to AIA document B101 with RDG planning and design in the amount of $58,000 for the Carroll Rec Center Building Improvement Project 2021.
Thank you, Chad. Do you have anything that you'd like to add? You want to?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing that I just want to clarify. Could you pull up my computer, Laura? What the heck? Well, that's not what should be on my computer right now, because that's not what I'm looking at. Just wait.
Right. Is that correct?
No,
Mayor,
it's my computer, but it's not
Oh,
the
okay.
screen I wanted to pull up.
Sorry. I'm going back.
There we go. Oops. So I just wanted to clarify when Chad was talking about the ADA. So this was the drawing that was included in your packet. And it shows it's going to be sloped down, which we've had discussions with RDG. That's not how we'll design it, based on making sure that we don't impact the basketball hoops that are on the court. What we're looking at, there'll be a little addition up here, and then there'll be stairs that will come down and access the mezzanine. Originally, we were looking at trying to make this ADA compliant as an option, and it's an option that we're looking for direction from council. Is we could put a ramp on this east side inside the mezzanine that would come from 14 and a half feet approximately down to 11 feet in elevation. That ramp and slope would be compliant for ADA purposes, and it would allow access from an ADA compliant standpoint. So the question, I think, really is what I would suggest to council, if it's an option you want us to explore, is to add that in as an add alternate option, and so we can then get a price for it and consider it in the context. But if it's not important, like Chad said, we duplicate all of the equipment we put on the mezzanine on the first floor, so we don't need to make it ADA compliant from that perspective. Now, there would be some benefits if we can put similar equipment next to each other instead of having everything spread out. Most facilities, they do that, so there could be some benefits for our members to have that duplication. So I guess we're looking for some direction on that option.
Mike, a question on the elevator.
Correct.
Why
Yep.
can't you move the location that over to the mezzanine and kill two birds with one stone?
It's just the spacing that we have available. This space is an existing space we have in the facility. It's a storage room. So it really worked well to put it there. You could put it there, but it's going to take a lot of space up on the in the fitness room today. I guess we'd like to avoid taking that space up. Plus, the other issue you're going to have is how do you put it? It's going to be multi-level elevator versus this is the first floor, second floor. To put it on the mezzanine, you're probably going to have 3 stops. So it would increase the cost of that elevator. And you're going to have 2 of the stops near each other. We're going to have to go different directions because the elevational difference between the mezzanine's 11 feet and the floor level of the walking track's 14 and a half feet. So you're going to have to come out different doors because of that elevational change. Does that make sense?
And you're right, it'd be right in the middle of the weight room. I mean, in the middle against that wall, but it'd be, and this is just pretty empty or dead space right now.
It's storage space today. So, and with the additional storage made on the north side, it's easy to offset that. It's an easy trade there.
So you've heard the recommendation from staff. Is there any other comments or any consideration anybody'd like to make at this time?
I'd like to bring up the information on Amendment 2 to the AIA, the potential add alternate west multi-purpose rooms. I think it would be good to add this and get the information to see what it would cost. Jack, made a presentation about the multi-purpose rooms and the crowding and people requesting more space, how they're packed in with the spinning equipment, et cetera, et cetera. After our last meeting, I had numerous calls from people asking, did we intend to have that as an add alternate as we did on the original bid? And so I don't see how we could lose by not including it, just to see where it would come in at, and make our decision based on where the bid lands. It was at $245,000, and to me, it's a small part of the total cost, the $6.5 million estimate. And there are so many people that believe there's a need. I think we'd be smart to explore that and add it as add alternate. It's 1.3 on that page. Amendment 2 AIA document B101.
Is it going to cost us any more money?
So Carolyn brought that up to staff and asked about it. And really, like I explained to Carolyn previously, really the direction we had was to do the base bid and the add alternate. So I said we'd really need direction from council to add it. We did have a conversation with RDG. There would be no additional design cost to add that and include that as an additional add alternate. We just want, from a staff's perspective, that's not the direction we have. So we really want council to say, yep, to add that as an additional alternate. Would not cost us any additional to seek that information.
And there's not additional charges for finding out if we can make the top portion ADA compliant either.
That was included in the scope, and certainly I haven't asked Brad that specifically. Brad's online. I don't know if you want to address, do you feel if we include the ADA access to the mezzanine as a add alternate, if that would increase the price?
It would not.
Okay. Then I think it's worth getting the cost on it. For sure. That's my 2 cents.
I remember when we had an open house on the design, and there were senior citizens that came and they were asking about ADA compliance. And don't forget senior citizens, people with, that have a hard time being mobile. So yeah, I think it'd be good to explore the ramp also.
At this point, if there's no extra cost, why not find out? And then make your decision at a later time.
Mhm.
Just gives us more options is all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So back to your original recommendation, resolution, the first one, approving amendment 01 to the standard form needs to be done kind of regardless because it's already been done. It just hasn't been approved. So can I seek a motion to approve that first resolution, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded for the resolution approving amendment 01 to the standard form of agreement. Roll call, please. Or any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Shrek,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Base,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bordenaro.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you. So then following that, I would seek a motion to approve a resolution to approve amendment 02 to the standard form and agreement. And is that to include the two other additional options?
Mhm.
So is there a motion to that effect?
So moved?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Base,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Bordenaro, Shrek,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Perfect. Thank you. We will move to item 6B, which is Merchants Park lease agreement. Very exciting thing for Carroll this summer. Iowa High School Athletic Association State Baseball is returning, and we need to discuss and hopefully approve the Merchants Park lease agreement. And do you want to take that, Chad?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right.
So, no surprise to anybody right now, but we are getting state baseball back for 1A and 2A. Very exciting for everybody. This lease would include Carroll hosting 1A and 2A through the 2024 season. The Iowa High School Athletic Association is willing to pay a total of $5,600 or approximately $400 per game for field use, and is paying the city of Carroll $1,000 to be used at the city's discretion for costs related to the state baseball tournament as well. So obviously our recommendation is consideration and approval of the attached lease agreement and resolution for Merchants Park between the city of Carroll and the Iowa High School Athletic Association through 2024.
What dates does that run this year? Do you know? If you don't know, that's fine.
16th through the 22nd of
Is that what it is?
July
It's in the
18th
contract.
through the
Oh,
23rd.
okay. Sorry.
Yeah. I was
No, it's. I
close
can't
just way
read.
off.
Okay, good. Nope. Thanks.
You had the last date.
Have they given us a list of improvements we need to do?
So in our initial meeting with them this year, some of the things that were highlighted were also things that we're looking for with this grant that's going forward. So it was all things that brought to our attention, some lighting issues, widening the dugouts, and then a little extra area for press.
Bleacher,
Three main concerns, and all three of them are being addressed.
bleacher improvements
Good.
on the
Yeah, bleacher
outside
improvements.
the stadium. And then we're also looking to make some improvements to the wind screens on the outfield and fencing improvements on the outfield.
So that won't be done this year, I take it.
It will not be done this year. One of the discussions we had with the Iowa High School Athletic Association was what they really will look for doing in the future years. After the second year, they'll really approach the city again at that point to negotiate for another 3-year agreement. And they would look to see, has the city tried to make improvements in those areas? But they know that there'll be none of those improvements for this year.
And what's that grant from?
That's the Economic Development Authority. It's a federal agency through the Department of Commerce that we're applying for. They actually receive funds through one of the COVID stimulus bills to do tourism attraction improvements. And so we're working with Region 12 and Chris Whitaker to make that application. And the indications we've had from them, they think it'll be a pretty viable project, even through the Economic Development Authority. I think administration, I said that wrong.
Anything else, Chad, or Mike, on that?
Excited for baseball season.
Yeah, so am I. Watched a little college baseball over the weekend. So the recommendation is before you to approve the lease agreement between the Iowa High School Athletic Association and the city. Is there a motion to do such?
A motion.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Schreck?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Ford. Resolution is approved.
Very good. Along the same lines, we'll talk softball now, Chad. And item 6C is adult softball field lease agreement with Kemper Catholic Softball for 2022.
Absolutely, thank you. So Kemper Catholic School System is requesting the use of that south adult softball field located just east of Merchant Stadium for the use of some varsity and JV softball games. It's about 10, maybe 11 dates. Due to the compressed seasons brought down from the Iowa Girls Athletic Union, they're having a lot of trouble scheduling both Kemper and Carroll games at Carroll Tiger Stadium. So they came to us willing to help with some facility upgrades at the area. We did meet Wednesday night to discuss some of the upgrades. A representative from Kemper will be drawing up some plans for further approval. Things we talked about were just changing out some of the dugouts. They just need to be upgraded a little bit. Fencing work and a possible hitting cage. Kemper will also be purchasing a portable and removable fence to be taken down and put up before and after games to allow for the correct playing field size. So our recommendation for the council is consideration and approval of the attached lease agreement and resolution with Kemper Catholic School System for the use of the South Adult Softball Field for the 2022 softball season.
Very good. My comment would only be thanks to you, and I know Mike and people at Kemper and Bob Fossbender and goodness knows who all else was involved to get this ironed out. It's still kind of a trial by fire type of arrangement. We understand that going into, but hope that it all works well for all parties. So any other comments or questions for Chad on it? We've got the recommendation before us. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the lease with Kemper and the adult softball field lease agreement?
So moved.
Okay, call that a motion in a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ford.
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Schreck?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you. Item number 6D on resolutions is a not to exceed a $2.65 million general obligation capital loan notes for street improvements. And I turn that over to Randy, but before I do so, you want me to go ahead and open the public hearing first, and you're going to do it?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so I have 5:39, and we'll open the public hearing.
Yes, thank you, Mark.
Thank you too, Laura.
The fiscal 23 budget that is next on your agenda that we'll hold a public hearing on does include a proposal for a debt issuance for a street improvement project, of which the project is the scope of it to be yet to be determined. The debt issuance is an essential court purpose, so council needs to hold this public hearing and take comments. No comments were received in the office prior to tonight's meeting about this debt issuance. The public hearing notice was published in the Carroll Times-Herald on Friday, March 4th, which is in accordance with the requirements of state code. After the public hearing, if council so desires and to move the process along, they would need to take action to approve the resolution instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed the $2,650,000 general obligation capital loan notes. And then the next item on here after that resolution is another resolution the short name for it is the pre-levy resolution, but actually it's a resolution authorizing the issuance and levying of a tax for the payment thereof. The fiscal 23 budget does also include the debt issuance or principal and interest payment for this debt issuance in fiscal 23. In order to include that into the levy that has been proposed, that is part of our budget, we would need to approve this pre-levy resolution in order to include that and collect the taxes for next year. Does anybody have any questions on the two resolutions that are before you?
And it's just a two-step process then. It's
Mhm.
kind of new to me, but I mean, I'm learning as I go. But you explained it well. But it's a two-step process.
Yes.
So two separate resolutions.
Two separate resolutions, yes.
Any other questions for Laura? Are there any comments from those in attendance? Come forward, Randy, and introduce yourself and your address, please.
Randy Toff, 708 North Adams. I have McClure gave us handout during a meeting when they was here, I believe in December. On the back, with their letterhead on here, it says project cost 3.2. And now we're doing 2.6. I'm curious how we make up the shortfall.
Would you like me to?
Sure, yeah. I
address
mean,
that? So there's a number of funding sources that are identified for this project, like all of our street projects that we've done in the past. You know, we use road use tax funds. We use some local option sales tax funds. We have some debt proceeds that you would see here. So there's just a number of funding sources that we use. Debt is only part of the funding source for this particular project.
Appropriate.
of course, sure.
So there's been a number of discussions in this chamber about what the property owners would be responsible for. Water, sewer, sidewalk, special assessment. Where are we on any of that?
There hasn't been any decision made on it and probably won't be for a little bit of time yet. And in a few moments, later on in the agenda, we're going to talk about Adams Street specifically, because I know that's your interest primarily. But what this is going to allow the council to do is we're going to issue the debt for the bonds to do $2.5 million worth of road work for fiscal year 23. Now, whether or not it continues to be Adams Street, which is appearing to be a little less likely, it would still allow us to do other projects in the city as well. Did I explain that fairly
Yeah,
well?
and the other thing I would add is in the current fiscal year 2023 budget, the way it's presented, even if we did Adams Street, the way it's presented does not include any street special assessments. And so the project would be fully funded without any special assessments, the way it's presented in the budget.
That includes sidewalk, water, and sewer.
That would not include those items because typically those have always been the responsibility, well, under city ordinance, that's the responsibility of the private property owner. That it's not a city expense.
So if a new water main's put in, the water lines to the property line are charged to whom?
Well, that again is a private utility that the homeowners, now if it was simply, if the decision is made to simply put in a water main and reconnect the services, the city would pay that expense. But if a decision's made at some point that the 100-year water main that's being connected by 100-year services need to be replaced, a policy decision would have to be made. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. There's a number of policy decisions the council needs to make on the street improvement project. Historically, those services are the responsibility of the individual property owners. They have not historically in the city of Carroll ever been paid for by the city themselves.
Never?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And
Well, with that, thank you.
Any other questions or comments during the public hearing? Still open? Anything from the council then? Okay. I'm showing 5:45 to close the public hearing. And then the recommendation, again, is we have the two resolutions before us. The first one is to institute the proceedings to take additional action on the bonds. And is there a motion to approve? What was that? Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shrek? Yes. Seaman?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Bordenaro?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Dirks?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you. Following that, the two-step process is the resolution to authorize the issuance and levying a tax for the payment thereof of what we just approved. Is there any further, or any comments on that, or is there a motion to approve that, please?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Bordenaro?
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Perfect. Thank you. So item 6E is another public hearing. We're going to discuss the fiscal year 23 budget. And Laura, I show 5:47 to open that public hearing to discuss the fiscal year 23 budget. And I turn it back over to you, don't I?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
So
Tim.
this is the time for the public hearing on our fiscal 23 budget. The resolution does show the total tax rate of $11.80, almost 86 cents, 85,703, which does incorporate the changes that council had discussed at a few of the council meetings where we reduced the tax act scheme by $151,000. The notice of the public hearing was published in the Carroll Times-Herald on Friday, March 4th, which is within the requirements of the state code. Also included is the state budget forms that get filed upon approval by council. A good page to look at, I probably should have put this in the memo, a good page to look at is the summary pager. Well, the notice of the public hearing does show the summary of where the revenue in the different categories, as well as the expenditures. And when it comes to making sure we're staying within state requirements on the expenditure side of things, it's broken down into different, what we call functions or areas. Public safety consists of a number of different departments like fire and police and our building department. Public works includes, and that's across all funds. Public works includes, another example, the road use tax monies that we spend, some monies that get spent out of the general fund. So it's across all funds. It's not necessarily by fund, the way that the state requires us to fill out the forms. It does show the actual expenditures for the fiscal 21, how we ended the year, what we re-estimated in the fiscal 22, and we discussed it during our budget preparations, and then what's proposed for the fiscal 23 budget information. Then all these other pages are more detail and broken down a little bit more by funds for you guys to peruse if you would like to look at them. I won't go through line by line, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer if I can find the answer quickly.
Very good. Any questions for Laura? Jeff?
I have a question. I'll try to be brief.
And what is your name?
My name is Jeff Kaler. If I'm hearing correctly, a couple of meetings prior to this, the council talked about putting a project into this budget that would design and construct a sidewalk at the extreme south end of Maine onto Timberline, Hidden Valley, and then east on Pleasant Ridge. And if I heard correctly, money was being placed in the budget for the city to pay for that design, and I believe $178,000 in construction. I'm just curious why the city would bear that cost of constructing the sidewalk as opposed to, like when I built my house, I had to pay for mine, and probably a lot of people here did. And I think Randy just asked a question similar about, payment up here. Can somebody help me understand, one, how a decision was made to do a sidewalk, and more importantly, why the taxpayers from all over the city would pay for sidewalk in an area that's fairly well heeled. I mean, at the time I built my house, I didn't want to pay for a sidewalk and couldn't really afford it, but did. So I'm just curious what the rationale is there.
Yeah, fair question.
Is there a fair answer?
You probably remember the debate that went on, that night, and we had to get a budget done.
No, I understand
And
that.
so it's in there. The decision still remains whether or not to approve that expenditure.
Can somebody help me understand why there would even be discussion of the city paying for that as opposed to the normal mechanism of the house owner paying?
It was my understanding, and then chime in whenever you want, but it was my understanding is shoulda, woulda, coulda. That Carroll has not always had the most consistent, ordinance regarding sidewalks, except in later, additions in the modern era. And when some of those homes were built and done, there wasn't a requirement to do so. Since then, we all know that, for example, I always get those two confused, Carolyn. Pleasant Ridge is turned into like a truck route, and it's dangerous. And there has been some urging by citizens to do something about it. And that's where we are today. Did I paraphrase that fairly
and
close?
the huge amount of construction that's gone on south of Pleasant Ridge to the west, as Kyle mentioned earlier, and no sidewalks on either side. And I guess it's in our policies that we have discretion to do that. So based on safety, I mean, it is a huge safety issue. Then we were talking about finishing it on, I had to pay for my sidewalk there, but the residents along Pleasant Ridge, Hidden Valley, others that are in the new developments want something done. And so we thought this would expedite it, is my thinking. I'm not speaking for anyone else.
Has there been any discussion about extending that thing? Because like High Ridge Road from 12th Street to 8th Street, there's no sidewalk between Woodland and 12th. And that's a very, very heavily traveled road. And people that walk from like Fairview Village and such to Fairway and Ace Hardware and all that are walking in the street or going over to Amy Avenue and down and then coming back.
Yeah, and Jeff, I'll address that in the corridor 2.0 that RDG worked on. A lot of it was sidewalk work where they noticed that people were walking in streets, again, unsafe. Another sidewalk that's been recommended to me because it's in Ward 4 is along 11th Street on the north side of the Aquatic Center, where all the kids are walking down the street. It's crowded. It's a narrow street. So a lot, what you brought up, a lot of those needs are addressed in that corridor 2.0.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, great. It was a great question. I'm just speaking for myself. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And just to interject for clarification, the funds in fiscal year 2023 are just design dollars. For construction would happen no earlier than 2024. And it is an unfunded item in the 2024 capital improvement plan. So there's no identified funding for that project. Now, that could be special assessments. If you go back and look at our sidewalk policy, that's what it's talked about. Now, I would relay this year, we went in front of 3 private residents on Main Street, or was it 4? Do you recall, Randy?
It would be about 3.
3.
That little portion of 4.
4th. Majority of that sidewalk that went in last summer was along city property. But there were a few, and the city did bear that cost of putting that section in.
Okay, the public hearing is still underway. Is there any other questions or comments? Anybody in the public? Council have anything at this time? Doesn't look like it. So I see that it's 5:55, Laura. So I'll close the public hearing on the fiscal year 23 budget. And then we will consider the recommendation that staff has made to close the public hearing, that the council would approve the resolution adopting the fiscal year 23 budget.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution adopting the 23 annual budget. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Base? Yes. Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Bordenaro?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Very good. I would just like to comment real quick and thank Laura and Mike and all of the department heads and all of the city staff for putting together what I really called. I mean, it was a mind-boggling budget for me, but at the same time, I think you guys really laid it out very well for us and easy to understand, or as easy as this simple mind can fodder. But anyways, I really appreciate all the work that you guys put in. I know it's a boatload of work, and thank you for doing so. And then finally, I also want to thank the council for their work and cooperation and due diligence as well. So my first budget, it's under wraps, so thank you. Item number 7 under reports, we have Adams Street reconstruction, and I think I do turn this over to Randy. Do I not, or Mike? No,
We have one item before that.
did I miss one? Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Yeah, and I even had it checked. I'm sorry. Item number F is the fiscal year 23 salary resolution, and Mike, you're going to
Take
take
that,
that.
sir.
I'm sorry, I missed
You're
that.
fine. Mark and council, included in the packet was the annual salary resolution. This includes top of pay and in some cases ranges for all city positions, generally beginning on July 1st of 2022. For full-time positions, following the union contracts, and then for non-representative full-time positions, we also have historically followed the same adjustment for union contracts. So all of the adjustments is a 3%, and that follows the police and public works union contracts that do run through the end of June 30th of 2023. So this year, city staff did spend time reviewing pay ranges for the part-time positions. And really, we've done this due to the changing market. The part-time pay ranges were adjusted to hire new employees and frankly, to retain our current employees. So there were a number of changes that are being recommended, and I'll review those quickly. For leisure service assistants, concession workers, and library pages, we're recommending $11 an hour at the entry level. For lifeguards, it'd be $12 an hour. For leisure service supervisors, park, golf, cemetery, seasonal workers, control room operators, library assistants, and city maintenance workers, $13.50 per hour. For aquatic center pool assistant managers, head lifeguards, and dual position control room operators, lifeguard positions, $14 an hour. And for technology specialists, rec center building supervisor, aquatic center pool manager, and custodians, $15 an hour. Now, for some positions, it is a rather large increase, but we do believe, as from staff's perspective, this is really necessary to attract, and probably more importantly, frankly, to retain individuals we have in this position. We've lost a number of individuals in these positions, and particularly with lifeguards, that are simply going to other locations for higher pay. And I would tell you, this probably won't prevent all the issues we've had, because we've lost, for lifeguards, for example, $12 an hour. I know we've lost people to substantially more than $12 an hour, but we do believe to help that situation, this is a needed increase. Additionally, staff is requesting that the increase for the lifeguarding type position begin April 2nd. And so we can have that in place and begin advertising for the upcoming summer season. And I'd also note that the technology specialist position is currently not a position we have and not in the salary resolution. This would be a position here at City Hall to assist with some of our technology needs. And that's requested also to begin April 2nd of 2022. So our recommendation is for council to approve the resolution setting top of pay or pay ranges for city employees included in the packet starting July 1st, 2022. Be happy to answer any questions the council has on the proposed resolution.
Question I do have is, what's the current wage for lifeguards now? And if this $12 an hour does not get us any applicants, what's the next step? Or is there something in place that we go to next to make sure that facilities aren't closed or running lean on staff?
Yeah. So currently the entry pay is 10 and a quarter. So it's a $1.75 increase. We also have in there an incentive, and I have to look just so I get it right. If they work at least 400 hours between a summer window of May 15th and August 31st, they would get a 50-cent increase bump on their pay. So potentially they could be making $12.50 an hour. And that's just encouraging them to put those hours in. We do have, on top of the salary resolution, in the personnel policy in particular for the noon and morning shifts, there is the ability to pay up to time and a half for those shifts. Those are really short shifts, so to come in for an hour and a half in lifeguard. What we have been doing and what we're planning to do is there'd be a $5 incentive to do that morning and noon shift. So it would take up to $17 an hour for coverage of that shift. And so that's all allowed in the personnel policy that the council has in place. Certainly, if that does not attract the applicants we need, I think we'll continue to look at different ways. One of the issues like the noon shift right now, we've had a number of shifts that are not filled, where they have two individuals, one, is working a lot. We have another person that's currently out on leave. We're working to fill a third full-time position that we would think that can also do some coverage on that noontime shift if we needed it. Not ideal because that's a more of a supervisory position, but if we have to fill a noontime shift, that's what we're going to do. But if the wages don't work, we're going to have to come back and maybe have more discussions with council. But one of the issues that we have is, again, we have set union contracts. Council hasn't discussed wanting to reopen those at this point. Certainly that's always an option, and nor do we have to really reopen them for part-time positions. But our low end, our lowest paid union position, kind of becomes a buffer, a limiting point on how much we can pay our part-time employees, because that makes it a really difficult decision to say we're going to have a part-time lifeguard make more than a full-time employee that we have at the city. So some of the discussion on how we set this up was really kind of limiting because of other positions we have in the city. And I think long-term that's going to become an issue is we're going to, as we have to push these part-time wages, we're going to face a compression issue that's going to probably really push the city to consider those lower end positions, what we do pay-wise for them even. And I'm sure it'll be a discussion during the union negotiations we have next year.
Any other questions for Mike? Salaries?
Once that lifeguard gets to 400 and some hours, you say?
Correct.
Do you backfill that 50 cents an hour or start from there?
We do. We backfill. So it becomes a pretty good incentive of if you work that 400, you're basically going to get a $200 bonus at the end of the season.
Okay.
And that's how we're going to advertise it, that work the hours, get a bonus at the end of the season.
Okay.
Is there anything in place for like a longevity bonus if they come back the year after or the year after that just to?
So the range for lifeguards is $12 to $16 an hour. And so we typically in the past have every year's service, you can get a quarter bump. And so as we make this big increase, there'll be some lifeguards that, maybe today are making $11 an hour. We'll probably take them up to, $12.50, $12.75. So they're not at the entry level position. So they'll see some benefit, because again, we shouldn't have a lifeguard that's been working here 3-4 years make the same amount as an entry level lifeguard, and they're going to be facing the same challenges of other employees. I don't foresee situations, and we didn't run a report to see where, or I didn't run a report to see where every lifeguard is being paid today. But what I would tell you is we are very frugal on how we apply our salary ranges for part-time employees. I would say we don't have any, if very few, that'd be at the top of range today. And that's how we look to move forward as we kind of move and adjust the current employees onto this new ranges.
I told Mike when we talked about it a week ago Friday that, I mean, it's the only thing we know, at least now, to immediately, move the ball. And we got to still think creatively out of the box and how to maybe, incentivize or maybe even subsidize lifeguard training. I'm just talking lifeguards. I mean, that's only part of the problem here, but, how we can, create, more interest in taking these positions, and pay is only just a component of it. So, we don't know, to your point, Kyle, we don't know if this isn't going to, if it is going to move.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's something
But we
later
hope
on,
that
if you have
does.
to move a little bit more to
Yeah.
recruit more, you still
Yeah.
have that room too.
Yeah.
So,
No one likes these closings. I mean, it's.
And certainly in this salary resolution, there is a range of $12 to $16.
okay.
So even from a staff perspective, we do have some room, and we can move movement in there.
Mike, how many hours a week will the technology specialist be working?
If we proceed to do this, it would be under 4 hours a week. So it's a pretty light position.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I don't think a lot of people know that their rec center pool is closed every so often because we have lifeguards.
Yeah.
What, it's 9 noon hours this month?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's a new thing for us. I mean, we've been pretty
And there's-
fortunate that
There's
we
as high as 50 people there sometimes that can't go now.
And we have investigated ways. I know Chad reached out to the state to see if we could close, for example, the deep end.
Yeah.
And there's two different lifeguard classes. There's shallow water, deep water. Most people probably could get the shallow water training, but because you can't physically close it, they basically know you have to have that deep water lifeguard, and that's what makes it difficult for us. And we're not like hotels where hotels don't have to have lifeguards. We're required under state statute to have lifeguards at all times in a public pool.
Any other questions or comments? So the recommendation is for the council to consider and approve the resolution setting top pay or ranges for the city employees beginning with July 1st, 2022, other than the footnotes that you made here in April. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the resolution setting top pay or ranges for pay for the city employees beginning fiscal year 23. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bauer,
Yes.
Bordenaro, Shrek,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Base, yes, Dirks.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Perfect. And earlier, I just gave an advanced warning that it would be Randy, so it is your turn. I'm sorry, I missed that. So item number 7 is reports. You've got 2 reports. First one on Adams Street.
Yes,
Randy.
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, too.
The original Adams Street construction schedule included, or project schedule included bid letting on February 22nd. Now, that schedule and date were predicated on making a series of policy decisions so that could be incorporated into the design development process. Some of those policy decisions included roadway, sidewalk driveways, municipal utilities, and financing. Some of those are pretty straightforward and can be made. Others, it's probably a better idea to solicit public and particularly those directly impacted input before those decisions are made. And considering that, the plans have been developed to this point. McClure is at the point where they really need those decisions to be made to complete those construction plans. And with the time of year that we're in, bid lettings should be coming soon if they're going to be constructed during this fiscal or this calendar year. We're recommending that this project be delayed 1 year and take time to solicit that input, incorporate it into the plans, and hopefully have a good project, time to make decisions. So unless there are any questions, that's exactly what our recommendation is, that this project be delayed a year and scheduled for bid letting this time next year.
Very good. Any other questions or comments for Randy regarding that? Any questions from the public? Randy, you want to approach?
I'm curious as Randy Toft. I'm curious as to what point we decide what the property owners have to pay. I think that's a legitimate question at this point. We've already decided it's going to wait a year, but by the time we wait a year, now it's this time next year and we still haven't decided anything. So can we just pull the trigger and decide what we're going to be back charged or whatever
Randy, I brought that
fancy
up.
term?
We had a sub-meeting today and I brought that up in the meeting. I said, it's time, we got to get this settled. What is a council we're going to do? And Mike can answer.
Yeah, I mean, our plan is, there's a number of topics that the council wants to undertake. Housing being one, train horn mitigation, this project. So our plan is over the next few months, we're going to be scheduling a series of workshops. Adam Street will be one of those workshops during a council meeting like this. And then we'll kind of go through these issues specific to Adam Street and get direction. And we'll have public input during those discussions on how you want to proceed with those. So that's our plan on how we want to do it in an open and transparent process. But we really, with the budget discussions we've had and we were out to bid with the rec center and just some of the discussions, we just couldn't get this going and on an agenda to keep it on for a 2022 construction. But we want to give sufficient time for the council and the public to have that discussion in a manner that we're not rushing to make quick decisions.
Right. So then I only have one subject, and that's the parking along the east side of the 700 block. I pay commercial taxes and I have commercial parking for my business and my wife's business. And I would like to see that continued and not just tore out. I was actually told at one point that is the city's property and that they would maintain it. And so, because I offered to pour a section that was in disrepair. And so if it's the city's, I would like them to replace it. Thank you.
And that'll be an item of discussion that we'll have through this process. I know historically, just for some context, I think it's important, outside of the central business district, we've always required even commercial property owners to pay for those off-site parking. Similar to like Walmart, they pay for their own parking lot. Sharp's Funeral Home this last year paved all that parking in front of their property. So historically, that's been outside of the core business district, and that ends at 7th Street. Those have been the responsibility of the adjacent property owners, even commercial property owners.
Well, then they need to change the zoning on my property so I'm not hosed every year for additional commercial.
Well, zoning wouldn't make that determination. Those are,
Zoning did at one time. They
well,
denied my request.
but ultimately, those are the use determination on how taxation's done is done by the county assessor's office. And so you can have a property, for example, that would be residential zoning. But if the use that's occurring inside is commercial, that determination would be made by the county assessor on how they tax the property. The city does not have a role in determining the use and assessment of a property.
Have you ever approached the Board of Review, Randy, on that?
Zoning and
Not planning and zoning, but through the county assessor, they have their own Board of Review.
oh, yeah.
And I would make the recommendation, maybe, bring it up to them,
Absolutely, that's a good point.
and see
I
if
find
they,
it ironic. Used to be a light pole, a giant light pole here and one block down at the next intersection. So in order to put these fancy little lights in, they deleted them too. So now the only light on my block is my porch light that comes on when a car or a person walks on the sidewalk. So I think you need to address more than just whatever. Thank you.
thank you too, Randy. Okay, so are you going to need a motion to put that off into fiscal year 23 or to fiscal year 24?
We would
approve
like
that?
to request one, yes.
Okay. So you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to move the Adam Street project into calendar year 23?
Motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shrek? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
And then item 7B is a pickup truck purchase. Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On March 8th, proposals were received and opened for the purchase of a pickup truck to be used in the wastewater division. One proposal was received from New Way Ford in the amount of $21,740. There is budgeted $30,000 for the purchase of this pickup, and there's a few additional items of equipment that will need to be purchased, but we anticipate that they will be within the budgeted funds. Normally, we probably wouldn't recommend award of a purchase of a pickup with one bid, but I did review the last pickups that we purchased, which were in 2018. We purchased 3, and the net price on those pickups, one of them was just over $21,000, and 2 of them were $20,300 something. So we believe that the proposal of New Way Ford is a good proposal, a good price. And so we're recommending the approval of that purchase from New Way Ford at their bid price of $21,740.
Nature of the beast these days, I'm afraid. Any clarification or details or questions for Randy on that? The council? Hearing none, you've heard the recommendation. The recommendation is for the council to consider and approve the purchase of a pickup truck from New Way Ford at their proposed net price of $21,740. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'm going to exclude myself from this one, just
Okay.
for being part of the business.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to make that purchase, $21,740 from New Way Ford. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Base? Yep. Seaman?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. Dirks?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Perfect. Okay, moving right along. I don't think I've missed anything again. Comments from the mayor, I have none. Comments from the city council? Any? Hearing none. Comments from the city manager? I skipped it last time.
Not
didn't
this
I?
evening, Mayor.
Okay, not going to happen tonight. So I would seek a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Dirks?
Yes.
Cordero?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Seaman?
Yes.
We are adjourned.